I never thought my life would implode over a plate of barbecued chicken. There I stood at the grill during Mom's 60th birthday celebration, flipping drumsticks, when my cousin Ashley raised her glass. To the real daughter, she announced, the one who stayed and took care of Mom. Before I could process those words, Mom presented my sister Jenna with Grandma's diamond necklace that had been promised to me since childhood. "She deserves it more," Mom declared. The tongs trembled in my hand. No one even glanced my way. Humiliated, I packed up my kids without a word. 2 days later, Mom's bank called. The drive home from Mom's birthday barbecue felt interminable. My husband Mark had taken our SUV home earlier with our suitcases since I'd planned for the kids and me to stay late. Now we were crammed in my compact car, Lily and Connor, unusually quiet in the back seat. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel as I replayed the afternoon's events over and over. "Mom, are you okay?" Lily asked, her 8-year-old voice small in the darkness. "Just tired, sweetheart," I lied, catching her worried eyes in the rearview mirror. Connor had already fallen asleep, his 6-year-old head lolling against the window. The family dynamics with my sister Jenna had always been slightly unbalanced. 2 years younger than me, Jenna was the sensitive one, the artistic one, while I was practical and driven. Mom never explicitly favored her, but there was always an extra beat of patience, an extra moment of attention that Jenna received. Dad balanced things out, appreciating my ambition and work ethic. We functioned well enough as a family unit. After graduating with my architecture degree, I landed a fantastic opportunity with a growing firm in Seattle, 6 hours from our small hometown of Pineville. It wasn't an easy decision to move, but at 23 it was time to build my own life. Mark and I met there, married 3 years later, and started our family. I rose through the ranks to become a project manager overseeing commercial developments throughout the Pacific Northwest. Despite the distance, I maintained close ties with my family. Monthly visits became quarterly after the kids were born, but I called Mom weekly without fail. For holidays and birthdays, we always made the 6-hour drive back to Pineville. Everything changed 5 years ago when Dad died suddenly of a heart attack. Mom was devastated. Jenna, who'd been drifting between temporary jobs since college, moved back home just until Mom gets back on her feet. Weeks became months. Months became years. I suggested selling the family house once Mom seemed to be coping better, perhaps helping her find a smaller place closer to Seattle. But Jenna and Mom dismissed the idea immediately. So instead, I arranged automatic monthly transfers to supplement Mom's modest pension and Social Security, ensuring she could maintain the house and live comfortably. Throughout it all, I never questioned the understanding about Grandma's diamond necklace. When Grandma passed away 10 years ago, she had specifically told me the necklace would be mine someday. For my practical granddaughter, who still appreciates beautiful things she'd said, Mom had confirmed this arrangement multiple times over the years. Until today, when everything I thought I understood about my family shattered like glass. I pulled into our driveway in the Seattle suburbs just after 10 o'clock. Mark came out to help with the sleepy kids, his expression questioning when he saw my tight face. "That bad?" he asked quietly, as we carried the children inside. "Worse," I said, but didn't elaborate until we had tucked Lily and Connor into bed. In our bedroom, I finally broke down, telling Mark everything about the toast, the necklace, and the silent judgment I'd felt from every direction. "I've done everything I could from here," I said, wiping angry tears. "The monthly transfers, the calls, the visits. What more could I possibly have done?" Mark pulled me into a hug. "Nothing. You've been an amazing daughter. This isn't about you, Damaris. Something else is going on." I was about to respond when we heard a soft knock at our door. Lily stood there in her pajamas, eyes red and puffy. "Lily, what's wrong?" I asked, immediately concerned. "I didn't want to tell you because you seemed so sad already," she hiccuped. "But I heard Aunt Jenna's friend talking at the barbecue. She said you abandoned your family and that you're less of a daughter because you moved away." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "Is that true, Mom? Did you abandon Grandma?" My heart shattered all over again. Not only had I been humiliated in front of the entire family, but now my daughter was carrying this burden too. "No, sweetheart," I said, firmly pulling her close. "That's absolutely not true. Sometimes adults say unkind things they shouldn't. I love Grandma very much, and I've always taken care of her in my own way." After Lily finally fell asleep between us, Mark turned to me in the darkness. "You need to talk to your mother," he said quietly. This has gone too far. I nodded already, dreading the conversation that would come tomorrow. The next morning, I waited until the kids left for school before calling Mom. My stomach knotted as the phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I was about to hang up when she finally answered. Hello. Her voice sounded tired, maybe a little guarded. Mom, it's Damaris. We need to talk about yesterday. A heavy silence followed. I suppose we do. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. What happened at the barbecue hurt me deeply. That necklace was promised to me since I was a teenager. Grandma specifically wanted me to have it. Plans change. Damaris' mom replied, her tone suddenly cold. Jenna has sacrificed everything to be here for me. What have you sacrificed? You chose your career and your new life over family. The accusation hit like a physical blow. That's not fair and you know it. I've supported you financially for years. I call you every week. We visit as often as we can with 2 school-aged children and demanding jobs. Money isn't everything, she shot back. Jenna gives me her time, her presence. She's here every day, driving me to appointments, cooking my meals, keeping me company. You can't buy that kind of care with monthly deposits. I gripped the phone tighter. I never said you could. But that doesn't erase my contributions or my love for you. And it certainly doesn't justify humiliating me in front of the entire family. You're being dramatic. Nobody humiliated you. My cousin literally toasted to Jenna as the real daughter, and you gave her the necklace that should have been mine right afterward. How is that not humiliating? You've always been too sensitive. Mom sighed. I need to go. Jenna's taking me to my hair appointment. She hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone shop, giving way to a simmering anger. This wasn't the mother I knew, the one who had always been fair despite her subtle preference for Jenna. Shaking, I opened my banking app to check on last month's transfer to Mom. What I found made my blood run cold. The automatic transfer amount had increased by $300 6 months ago without my knowledge or authorization. I quickly checked previous months and found another increase 9 months before that. I called the bank immediately and spoke with a customer service representative, who confirmed I had supposedly authorized these increases over the phone, providing my security questions correctly. But I had done no such thing. I hung up and called Mark at work. Something strange is happening, I told him, explaining about the transfers. That's not right, he said, his voice serious. Damaris, I think you need to look deeper into this. Someone's manipulating your mother's finances, and possibly your mother. After we hung up, I sat staring at my laptop, unsure what to do next. Finally, I decided to call Susan, Mom's best friend since high school. If anyone would give me an honest assessment of what was happening in Pineville, it would be her. Damaris, honey, Susan answered warmly. I was hoping you'd call. Yesterday was awful. You saw what happened. Everyone did. It wasn't right, not one bit. Relief flooded through me. At least, someone recognized the injustice. Susan, what's been happening there, Mom? Seems different, almost hostile toward me. Susan hesitated before answering. Your sister has been managing the narrative, let's say. For years now, she's been telling anyone who'll listen that you abandoned the family, that you don't care about your mother. But that's not true. I call every week. I send money. We visit regularly. I know that, honey. But Jenna makes it sound like those calls are brief and impersonal, that the money is just you easing your conscience and that your visits are obligatory and cold. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why would she do that? Another long pause. Damaris, there's something else you should know. Jenna has taken over everything in your mother's life. She manages all her finances, controls her medications, schedules all her appointments, and even screens her phone calls and visitors. Your mother hardly makes a move without Jenna's input or approval. A chill ran down my spine. Are you saying Jenna is isolating Mom? I'm saying it might be time for you to take a closer look at what's happening here. Your mother isn't entirely herself these days, and Jenna seems to be taking advantage of that. After thanking Susan for her honesty, I sat in stunned silence. This was worse than I had imagined. My sister wasn't just accepting accolades for staying home. She was actively working to undermine my relationship with our mother, while apparently controlling every aspect of Mom's life. I was about to call Mark again when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I answered cautiously. Is this Damaris Nelson? A professional female voice asked. Yes, this is she. This is Brenda Wilson from First National Bank in Pineville. I'm calling regarding your mother's accounts on which you're still listed as a cosigner. We've noticed some concerning activity that we'd like to discuss with you as soon as possible. My heart raced. What kind of activity? I'm afraid I can't discuss specifics over the phone for security reasons, but there have been numerous large withdrawals and transfers that have triggered our fraud alerts. Would you be able to come into the branch to review these transactions? I'll be there tomorrow, I said without hesitation. This wasn't just about a diamond necklace anymore. Something much more sinister was happening, and I needed to find out what. I left Seattle at dawn the next morning, kissing my still sleeping children and husband goodbye. Mark had agreed to work from home and handle everything while I sorted out whatever was happening with Mom. The 6-hour drive gave me plenty of time to think, to worry, and to plan my approach. Instead of going directly to Mom's house, I called my old friend Taylor, who graciously offered me a place to stay. Neutral territory might be best right now, she suggested, and I agreed. I wanted to see the bank records before confronting Jenna or Mom. Taylor greeted me with a warm hug when I arrived at her cozy downtown apartment. You look exhausted, she said, taking my overnight bag. Let me make you some coffee before you head to the bank. While the coffee brewed, Taylor filled me in on the local gossip. Your sister has crafted quite the narrative around town, she said carefully. According to Jenna, she's sacrificed her entire future to care for your mother while you've been living your best life in Seattle, barely acknowledging your family exists. That's absolute garbage, I said, my hands tightening around the coffee mug. I call every week. I send substantial money every month. We visit regularly. Taylor nodded sympathetically. I know that, and anyone who really knows you knows that too. But Jenna is very convincing in her martyrdom. She has your mother's book club church group and half the neighborhood thinking she's a saint, and you're, she trailed off. A villain, I finished flatly. Pretty much. And lately she's been hinting that your mother's health is declining and she's shouldering that burden entirely alone. That was news to me. Mom's health. She's never mentioned any health concerns beyond the usual arthritis and high blood pressure. Taylor shrugged. According to Jenna, it's more serious than that, though she's strategically vague about details. With this troubling information weighing on me, I headed to First National Bank. Brenda Wilson, a serious woman in her 50s, ushered me into a private office immediately. Thank you for coming so quickly, Miss Nelson. As I mentioned on the phone, we've noticed some concerning patterns with your mother's accounts. She pulled out a thick folder. Since you're still a cosigner from when you helped establish these accounts after your father's passing, you have legal access to all this information. What Brenda showed me made my stomach drop. Over the past 4 years, large sums had been systematically transferred from Mom's accounts to an account in Jenna's name. Her retirement fund had been steadily depleted through early withdrawals, incurring substantial penalties. New credit cards had been opened in Mom's name with balances approaching their limits. The transactions that finally triggered our system were these, Brenda said, pointing to 3 separate cash withdrawals of $4,000 each within a 2-week period. That's unusual activity for your mother's accounts. None of this was authorized by me, I said, feeling sick. And I doubt my mother understands the extent of what's happening. There's one more thing, Brenda said, hesitating slightly. The monthly transfers from your account to your mother's have been increasing, but those additional funds aren't staying in her account. They're being immediately transferred to your sister's personal account. So Jenna had been the one increasing my automatic transfers, then pocketing the extra money herself. The betrayal cut deep. I'd like copies of all of these statements, please, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. And I'd like to freeze any further large withdrawals or transfers temporarily while I sort this out. After leaving the bank with a folder full of damning financial evidence, I drove to Mom's house, my heart pounding. The familiar 2-story Craftsman looked the same as always. Flower beds, neatly maintained, white paint freshly touched up. Mom's sedan was in the driveway, but Jenna's red compact was nowhere to be seen. Taking a deep breath, I knocked on the door. Mom answered, her surprise evident. Damaris, what are you doing here? We need to talk, Mom. Is Jenna home? No, she's at her pottery class. She won't be back for a couple of hours. Perfect. I followed Mom into the living room, noticing small changes since my last visit. Jenna's artwork dominated the walls now, and there were unfamiliar furniture pieces scattered throughout. Mom, the bank called me yesterday about some concerning activity in your accounts. Mom's expression shifted from surprise to confusion. What are you talking about? My accounts are fine. Jenna handles all that for me. That's exactly the problem, I said, gently opening the folder of statements. Look at these withdrawals and transfers. Your retirement account has been nearly emptied. There are credit cards maxed out in your name. And large sums of money have been moving into Jenna's personal accounts. Mom stared at the papers, shaking her head. No, this must be a mistake. Jenna would never. She takes care of everything for me. Mom, she's been stealing from you. And from me. She's been increasing my monthly transfers to you, without my knowledge, then immediately moving that extra money to her own account. Mom's face hardened. You've always been jealous of your sister. Now you're making up these ridiculous accusations because you're upset about the necklace. This has nothing to do with the necklace, I insisted, pushing the bank statements toward her. These are facts, Mom. Numbers don't lie. I want you to leave, Mom said, standing up. I won't listen to these lies about Jenna. She's the one who's been here for me day in and day out while you've been living your perfect life in Seattle. I was about to respond when the front door opened. Jenna walked in freezing when she saw me. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice immediately defensive. I stood facing my sister directly. The bank called me about suspicious activity in Mom's accounts. Care to explain where her retirement fund went, or why there are thousands of dollars moving from her account to yours every month? Jenna's face went white, then red. You have no right to come in here and throw around accusations. You're not the one who's been taking care of Mom every single day. No, apparently I'm just the one financing your lifestyle while you drain Mom's savings, I shot back, holding up the bank statements. It's all right here, Jenna, in black and white. Mom stood between us, looking confused and distressed. Stop it, both of you, Jenna. What is she talking about? Jenna's composure cracked. Tears filled her eyes as she sank onto the couch. I deserve something for everything I've given up, she said, her voice breaking. Do you know what it's like to put your entire life on hold? No career, no husband, no children, just taking care of Mom day after day while Damaris gets to have everything? So you stole from her. From me? I asked incredulously. I earned that money, Jenna shouted. While you were building your perfect little family in Seattle, I was here changing light bulbs and driving to doctor's appointments and listening to the same stories over and over. Mom looked between us, her expression increasingly confused. I don't understand. What doctor's appointments? I'm perfectly healthy. Jenna and I both turned to look at her. Something in Mom's face had changed. She looked lost, vulnerable. Mom, we've been going to Dr. Matthews every month for the past year, Jenna said slowly. For your memory issues. I don't have memory issues, Mom insisted. And who is Dr. Matthews? A cold feeling spread through my chest as I watched my mother's genuine confusion. Jenna's face showed a mix of guilt and resignation. Mom, I asked gently, what day is it today? She looked at me with irritation. It's Tuesday, of course. And the date? Her confidence wavered. It's April, no May. May something. It was July 23rd. And who was the president before the current one? I asked, my heart sinking. Mom opened her mouth, then closed it again. Panic flashed in her eyes. I can't remember right now. Why are you asking me these silly questions? I turned to Jenna, fury building inside me. How long has this been going on? And why wasn't I told? Before Jenna could answer, Mom suddenly stood up, swaying slightly. I don't feel well. I think I need to lie down. As she took a step forward, her legs seemed to give way. I lunged forward, catching her before she hit the floor. Mom, Jenna, and I cried out simultaneously. Mom looked up at me, her eyes unfocused. Who are you? She whispered, before going limp in my arms. The next few hours passed in a blur. The ambulance. The emergency room. The endless questions from doctors and nurses. Blood tests. Brain scans. Through it all, Jenna and I maintained an uneasy truce, our mutual concern for Mom temporarily overshadowing the explosive confrontation at the house. Finally, a neurologist named Dr. Rivera called us into a small consultation room. Your mother is stable now, she began, her expression serious. But I'm concerned about what I'm seeing. The disorientation and memory issues you've described, combined with her test results, strongly suggest early to mid-stage dementia, possibly Alzheimer's disease. The diagnosis hit me like a physical blow. But this is the first I'm hearing about any cognitive issues, I said, turning to Jenna. Why wasn't I told? Dr. Rivera glanced between us, sensing the tension. According to our records, your mother has been experiencing symptoms for at least 8 to 10 months. Doctor, Matthews has been monitoring her condition, though I don't see records of the recommended follow-up appointments with a neurologist. I've been handling everything, Jenna said defensively. It's been overwhelming. When was her last appointment with Dr. Matthews? The neurologist asked. Jenna hesitated. About 3 months ago. Dr. Rivera frowned. The notes here recommend monthly checkups, especially while adjusting medications. Medications, I interrupted. What medications is she on? The doctor read from her tablet. She was prescribed Donepezil 6 months ago, but I don't see it on the current medication list you provided to the ER. Jenna's face flushed. We ran out. I meant to refill it, but with everything else. I struggled to contain my growing anger. So Mom has dementia, is supposed to be on medication that she's not taking, and has missed critical follow-up appointments. And no one thought to inform me, her other daughter. I was handling it, Jenna insisted. Like you've been handling her finances, I shot back. Dr. Rivera cleared her throat. I understand this is difficult, but right now we need to focus on your mother's immediate care. We'd like to keep her overnight for observation and to restart her proper medication regimen. Tomorrow we can discuss long-term care plans. After the doctor left, I turned to Jenna. I want the truth. All of it. Now. My sister slumped in her chair, suddenly looking exhausted. Mom started forgetting things about a year ago. Small stuff at first. Names of neighbors. Where she put her glasses. But it got worse. She'd forget conversations we'd just had. She couldn't remember how to work the microwave she'd used for 20 years. And you didn't think this was important enough to tell me? I tried to handle it myself, Jenna cried. I thought it would get better with medication, and… She hesitated. I was afraid. Afraid of what? That you'd swoop in and take over. That you'd move her to Seattle or into some facility. That all my sacrifices would mean nothing. I stared at her in disbelief. So instead, you hid her condition, neglected her medical care, and meanwhile systematically drained her bank accounts. How does that make any sense, Jenna? You don't understand what it's been like, Jenna suddenly shouted, years of resentment bursting forth. I gave up everything to take care of her while you got to have it all. The career, the husband, the kids, the house. What do I have? A bedroom in my childhood home, watching my youth slip away while I change light bulbs and manage Mom's pills. That was your choice, I reminded her. No one forced you to move back in with Mom. What choice did I have? Someone had to be here for her after Dad died. We could have figured something out together if you'd been honest from the beginning. Instead, you manipulated Mom, turned her against me, and stole money that was meant for her care. How could you do that to your own mother? I deserved compensation for what I gave up. Jenna's voice rose hysterically. You have no idea what it's like to watch your life pass you by, while your sister gets everything. So that justifies theft. Financial abuse of our mother. It wasn't abuse, it was payment for services, rendered Jenna. Insisted, though her voice wavered. Besides, the money was going to be mine eventually anyway. That's not how inheritance works, Jenna. And what about the increased transfers from my account? You had no right to touch my finances. You could afford it, you and your architect husband in your perfect Seattle home. Our argument was interrupted by a nurse who asked us to lower our voices. We fell into an uneasy silence until a hospital social worker named Grace entered the room. I understand this is a difficult situation, she said gently, but I need to address some concerns about your mother's care. Over the next hour, Grace asked detailed questions about Mom's living situation, her daily routine, medication management, and financial arrangements. With each of Jenna's incomplete or evasive answers, the picture became clearer. Mom hadn't been receiving proper care despite Jenna's claims of devotion and sacrifice. Given what I'm hearing, Grace said finally, I have serious concerns about your mother returning to the current care arrangement. There appears to be evidence of both medical neglect and financial exploitation, which I'm obligated to report to Adult Protective Services. Jenna paled. You can't do that. I'm her daughter. I've been taking care of her. Taking care of her money, you mean, I said coldly. Grace held up a hand. This isn't about assigning blame right now. It's about ensuring your mother receives appropriate care moving forward. I'd like to discuss some options with both of you. As Grace outlined various care possibilities from in-home health aides to assisted living facilities, I watched Jenna's face. Beyond the defensiveness and anger, I could see fear and surprisingly relief. The burden of caring for Mom while maintaining the facade of perfect daughter had clearly been crushing her. When Grace left to check on Mom, Jenna and I sat in silence for several minutes. I never meant for it to go this far, Jenna finally said, her voice small. At first, it was just borrowing a little to compensate for all the time I was spending. Then Mom started getting confused, and it was so easy to just manage things my way. By stealing from her and lying to me. By protecting my place in her life, Jenna shot back. You've always been the successful one, the one with the bright future. All I had was being the daughter who stayed. And yes, I resented you for leaving me with this responsibility. You could have left too, or asked for help, and admit failure. While you were building your perfect life, I shook my head, tired of the same circular argument. This isn't about me, Jenna. It's about Mom and the care she wasn't receiving while you were supposedly devoted to her well-being. I did my best, Jenna whispered. Your best included hiding her dementia, skipping her medications, missing doctor's appointments, and stealing her retirement funds, I said flatly. That's not devotion. That's exploitation. Jenna started to respond, but was interrupted when a nurse appeared to tell us Mom was awake and asking for us. We found her sitting up in the hospital bed, looking small and vulnerable in her hospital gown. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. Damaris, when did you get here from Seattle? She asked, her voice brightening. I've been here all day, Mom. Don't you remember? We were talking at the house earlier. Confusion clouded her features. No, that can't be right. I just saw you at the barbecue. For my birthday. My heart sank. That had been 3 days ago. I glanced at Jenna, who had the grace to look ashamed. Mom, I said gently, taking her hand, you haven't been feeling well, and the doctors are going to help you get better. But some things are going to change at home. Mom looked between Jenna and me, sensing the tension. What's wrong? Did you two have another fight? We need to talk about your care, Mom, I continued. The doctors say you need more help than you've been getting. I don't need help, Mom insisted. Jenna takes care of everything. That's the problem, I said under my breath. Mom's gaze sharpened suddenly, a flash of her old self breaking through the confusion. You found out, didn't you? She asked, looking directly at me. Found out what, Mom? About the money? About what Jenna's been doing? Jenna stepped forward, panic in her eyes. Mom, you're confused. You should rest now. I'm not confused about this, Mom said with surprising clarity. I've known something wasn't right for months. Bills I don't remember, missing jewelry, bank statements that don't make sense. But whenever I questioned Jenna, she told me I was imagining things, that I'd agreed to everything. Tears filled my eyes. Why didn't you call me? She said you were too busy with your own life, that you didn't want to be bothered with my problems. Mom turned to Jenna, hurt and betrayal in her eyes. You told me Damaris didn't call for weeks at a time. But she called yesterday, didn't she? And many times before that. Mom, please, Jenna begged. You're getting yourself upset over nothing. It's not nothing, Mom suddenly shouted, a strength entering her voice that I hadn't heard in years. You lied to me. You stole from me. And worst of all, you turned me against my own daughter. Jenna backed away from the bed, tears streaming down her face. I had to. You would have chosen her over me. You always loved her more. That's not true, Mom said, her anger giving way to sadness. I've always loved both my daughters. But love doesn't justify what you've done. In that moment, watching my mother's clarity break through the fog of her illness, I realized the depth of Jenna's betrayal. She hadn't just stolen money. She had stolen time and connection that could never be recovered, manipulating a vulnerable woman's fading memory to serve her own needs and resentments. Get out, I told Jenna, my voice quiet but firm. Get out before I call security and tell them exactly what you've done. For a moment, Jenna looked like she might argue. Then her shoulders slumped in defeat. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the hospital room, leaving me alone with the mother I now needed to protect from the very person who had claimed to be her caretaker. The morning after Mom's hospitalization, I woke early in Taylor's guest room, my mind racing with everything that needed to be done. My first call was to Mark, updating him on Mom's condition and the situation with Jenna. "I need to stay here longer than I planned," I told him. "There's so much to sort out." "Take whatever time you need," Mark assured me. "The kids and I are fine. Do you want us to come down this weekend to help?" "That would be amazing," I said, grateful, yet again, for my husband's unwavering support. My next call was to Dr. Matthews, Mom's primary physician. His nurse seemed hesitant to speak with me until I explained I was at the hospital with Mom right now. "We've been quite concerned about your mother," Dr. Matthews told me when he came on the line. "She's missed her last 2 appointments, and when I called to check on her, your sister said they were getting care elsewhere." "That wasn't true," I said, anger flaring again at Jenna's deception. "I'm learning Mom hasn't been receiving proper medical care at all." Dr. Matthews sighed heavily. "I was afraid of that. During her last visit, your mother seemed quite confused, and I recommended a comprehensive neurological workup. I even made the referral myself, but apparently they never went." "Can you tell me exactly what medications she should be taking?" "The hospital is restarting her donepezil, but I want to make sure we have the complete picture." After getting the full list of Mom's prescribed medications and recommended care plan, I thanked Dr. Matthews and promised to bring Mom in for a follow-up as soon as she was discharged from the hospital. My third call was to an elder law attorney named Caroline Bennett, whom I found through the hospital's resource center. She agreed to meet me later that afternoon. When I arrived at the hospital, I found Mom awake and more alert than she had been the previous day. The doctors explained that restarting her proper medications and treating her dehydration had helped considerably, though her underlying cognitive condition remained unchanged. "Good morning, Mom," I said, kissing her cheek. "How are you feeling today?" "Better," she said, though her eyes were worried. "Where's Jenna? Is she still angry with me?" This was going to be difficult. Jenna's not here right now. "We need to talk about some changes, Mom." Carefully, I explained what had been happening with her finances and her medical care. I showed her copies of the bank statements and explained what Jenna had done. "I don't want to believe it," Mom said, tears welling in her eyes. "My own daughter. I know it's hard," I said gently. "But we need to protect you and your assets now." "What's going to happen to Jenna?" The question caught me off guard. After everything Jenna had done, Mom was still concerned about her well-being. "That depends partly on you," I said honestly. "What she did was financial abuse, which is illegal. If you want to press charges, we can." Mom shook her head immediately. "No, I couldn't do that to her. She's still my daughter." "Then we'll find another way to address it," I assured her, respecting her decision, even if part of me wanted Jenna to face legal consequences. Dr. Rivera came in then to discuss Mom's care plan. "The good news is that with proper medication management, your mother's symptoms can be significantly controlled," she explained. "The bad news is that her condition will progress over time and she's going to need increasing levels of support." "What kind of support?" I asked. "At minimum, daily medication management, regular neurological follow-ups, and supervision for tasks like cooking and driving. As the disease progresses, she'll need more comprehensive care." Mom listened to this assessment with remarkable composure. "I don't want to be a burden on either of my daughters," she said firmly. "You're not a burden, Mom," I assured her, squeezing her hand. Later that afternoon, while Mom napped, I met with Caroline Bennett at her downtown office. The elder law attorney listened carefully as I explained the situation. "Unfortunately, this type of financial exploitation by family members is all too common," Caroline said when I finished. "The good news is that as co-signer on your mother's accounts, you have legal standing to help rectify the situation." "What do I need to do?" I asked. "First, we need to secure what's left of your mother's assets. I'll help you freeze the compromised accounts and open new ones that only you and your mother can access. We'll also file fraud reports for any credit cards or loans opened without her informed consent." "And Jenna, what happens to her?" Caroline's expression grew serious. "That depends on whether your mother wants to pursue criminal charges. Financial elder abuse is a serious crime. She doesn't want to press charges. Then we focus on recovery and protection moving forward." We'll need to document everything for potential civil recovery, and I strongly recommend you seek guardianship given your mother's cognitive condition. Guardianship. The word felt heavy, implying a complete role reversal with my mother. Based on what you've described about her dementia, she likely no longer has the capacity to make complex financial or medical decisions. Guardianship would give you the legal authority to make those decisions on her behalf and protect her from further exploitation. I left Caroline's office with a thick folder of paperwork and a clearer sense of the path forward. My next stop was Mom's house, where I needed to gather important documents and medication information. I half expected to find Jenna there, but the house was empty. In Mom's home office, I located her important papers, including her will insurance policies and property deed. I also found a journal in her nightstand drawer written in Mom's familiar handwriting. With a twinge of guilt, I opened it and began to read. The entries started about 18 months ago and documented Mom's growing confusion and fear. More disturbingly, they recorded conversations with Jenna that directly contradicted what I had been told. Damaris called today, but Jenna said I was napping and couldn't talk to her. I wasn't napping. Jenna says Damaris canceled her visit next month because she's too busy. That doesn't sound like her. Told Jenna I wanted to talk to Damaris about these memory problems I'm having. Jenna said Damaris doesn't want to be bothered with my health issues. Found my diamond necklace in Jenna's jewelry box. When I asked her about it, she said I gave it to her months ago. I don't remember that. As I read entry after entry, a pattern emerged of Jenna systematically manipulating Mom's perception of reality, exploiting her memory issues to isolate her from me and others who might notice what was happening. I was still reading when I heard the front door open. Jenna stood in the doorway, surprise, and then anger crossing her face when she saw the journal in my hands. "You have no right to read that," she snapped. "Just like you had no right to lie to Mom about me not calling," I countered, holding up the journal, "or about me not wanting to be bothered with her health problems." Jenna had the grace to look ashamed for a moment before her defenses rose again. I was protecting her. From what? From knowing her other daughter loves her, from getting proper medical care, from maintaining control of her own finances. From being abandoned again, Jenna shouted. "I knew once you found out about her condition, you'd swoop in with your resources and your competence and take over everything, just like you always do. This isn't about me taking over Jenna. It's about Mom getting the care she needs, which she clearly wasn't getting from you. I was doing my best. Your best included hiding her dementia, skipping her medications, and stealing her money. That's not caregiving. That's abuse." Jenna flinched at the word. "I never hit her or yelled at her. Abuse isn't just physical. What you did was exploitation, pure and simple." We stood in tense silence for a moment. Finally, I sighed. "Mom doesn't want to press charges against you despite everything. But things are going to change." "What do you mean?" "I'm filing for guardianship. Mom needs proper care, and her assets need protection." "You can't do that," Jenna protested. "I'm her caregiver." "Not anymore," I said firmly. "The bank records and her medical history show you've been neglecting her needs while stealing her money. No judge would consider you an appropriate guardian." Jenna's face crumpled. "So, that's it. You're taking her away from me." "No, Jenna. You took her away from yourself through your own actions." As I gathered the documents I needed and prepared to leave, Jenna followed me to the door. "What am I supposed to do now?" she asked, suddenly sounding young and lost. I turned to look at my sister, feeling a complicated mix of anger, pity, and lingering affection. "That's up to you. But if you want to remain part of Mom's life, you'll need to make amends and prove you can be trusted again." As I drove back to the hospital, I realized the truth in what I had just said. Despite everything Jenna had done, she was still Mom's daughter, and Mom still loved her. The road ahead would require finding a way to protect Mom while allowing for the possibility of healing the deep fractures in our family. But first, I needed to focus on securing Mom's immediate future and providing the care she deserved. The confrontations and hard choices weren't over, but for the first time since arriving at that fateful family barbecue, I felt a glimmer of hope that a better path forward was possible. The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Mom was discharged from the hospital with a detailed care plan, temporarily moving into Taylor's guest room while I sorted out long-term arrangements. Mark and the kids arrived from Seattle, bringing welcome, emotional support, and moments of joy amidst the stress. Caroline Bennett, the elder law attorney, moved quickly to file the guardianship paperwork and help me secure Mom's remaining assets. We discovered that beyond the bank accounts, Jenna had sold several valuable items from the house, including Dad's coin collection and some of Mom's antique jewelry, claiming they were gifts to her. On Saturday morning, I convened what Carolyn called a family intervention in the private room of a local restaurant. I'd invited Mom's oldest friends, Susan and Elaine, along with Dad's brother, Uncle James, and his wife, Aunt Karen. Taylor agreed to stay with Mom so I could speak freely with the group. "Thank you all for coming," I began once everyone had coffee in front of them. "I've asked you here because you're the people who care most about Mom, and I need your help." Over the next hour, I explained everything that had happened: Mom's dementia diagnosis, Jenna's financial exploitation and medical neglect, and the steps I was taking to secure Mom's care and assets. I showed them copies of the bank statements and medical records, as well as entries from Mom's journal. "I had no idea things had gotten so bad," Susan said, wiping away tears. "I knew something wasn't right, but Jenna always had excuses for why your mom couldn't see me or take my calls." Uncle James's face had grown increasingly grim. "Your father would be heartbroken to see this. He trusted both of you girls to look after your mother." "What can we do to help?" Aunt Karen asked practically. "First, I need your support for the guardianship petition. Your statements about Mom's condition and Jenna's behavior will help the court understand why this is necessary." They all agreed immediately, with Uncle James offering additional financial support if needed. "Second, I'm trying to decide the best living arrangement for Mom going forward. I'm considering moving her to Seattle to be near me, but I don't want to uproot her from her community and friends." This sparked a thoughtful discussion about the pros and cons of various options. Susan suggested looking into Meadowbrook, a highly regarded assisted living facility in Pineville with a specialized memory care unit. "They provide different levels of care as needed," she explained. "Your mom could start in her own apartment with daily support, then transition to more comprehensive care as her condition progresses." "That sounds promising," I agreed. "But I'm worried about her being here without family nearby to oversee her care and advocate for her." "That's where we come in," Elaine said firmly. "We can visit regularly and keep you updated. You can trust us to be your eyes and ears." Their unwavering support brought tears to my eyes. For years, I'd carried the burden of distance, feeling I wasn't doing enough for Mom despite my financial contributions and regular calls. Now I realized there were many ways to provide care, and building a network of support was just as important as being physically present. After the meeting, I drove to Mom's house where Jenna had been staying. We needed to have another conversation, one that would hopefully be more productive than our previous confrontations. I found her in the backyard, listlessly pulling weeds from Mom's flower beds. She looked up as I approached, her expression guarded. "How is she?" Jenna asked. "Better. The proper medications are helping with her confusion. She's staying with Taylor for now." Jenna nodded, looking back down at the dirt. "Has she asked about me?" "Yes," I admitted. "She's hurt and confused by what happened. But she still loves you." Jenna's shoulders slumped. "I've really messed everything up, haven't I?" For the first time, I heard genuine remorse in her voice, without the defensive justifications that had characterized our previous conversations. "Yes, you have," I said honestly. "But that doesn't mean you can't start making amends. How you're taking guardianship. You're in control of everything now." "This isn't about control, Jenna. It's about Mom's well-being." I sat down on the garden bench. "I spoke with Caroline Bennett this morning. If you're willing to cooperate fully, we can work out a repayment plan for the money you took instead of pursuing criminal charges." Jenna looked up, surprise and relief crossing her face. "Really? Mom doesn't want to see you prosecuted, and honestly, I'd rather focus on recovery than punishment. But there have to be conditions." "What conditions?" "First, full financial disclosure and cooperation. You need to account for every dollar you took and every item you sold." Jenna nodded. "I can do that." "Second, you need to get help. Professional help. The resentment and jealousy that led you to do this run deep, and you need to address them if you want to have a healthy relationship with Mom or me in the future." This was harder for her to accept, but after a moment she nodded again. Third, any future role you have in mom's care will be supervised and limited until you've proven yourself trustworthy again. That's non-negotiable. Jenna flinched but didn't argue. What about the house? Where am I supposed to live? The house belongs to Mom. Once we've settled her into appropriate care, we'll need to decide whether to keep it or sell it. In the meantime, you can stay here, but you'll need to start paying rent like any other tenant would. I don't have a job, Jenna pointed out. Then finding one should be your priority. You're 34 years old, Jenna. It's time to support yourself. We talked for another hour, working through practical details and beginning to address the years of resentment and miscommunication that had led us to this point. By the time I left, we had the outline of a plan for moving forward, though I harbored no illusions that rebuilding trust would be quick or easy. The following week was a blur of appointments and paperwork. I took Mom to tour Meadowbrook, where she was surprisingly receptive to the idea of moving in. It's like a nice hotel, she commented as we explored the bright, well-appointed common areas. And they have bridge clubs and art classes. You'd have your own apartment, but help would be available whenever you need it, I explained. And I'd visit regularly, plus Mark and the kids. Mom nodded, then asked the question I knew was coming. What about Jenna? That's up to you, Mom. If you want to see her, we can arrange supervised visits while we work on rebuilding trust. She's still my daughter, Mom said firmly. I don't want to lose her. You won't, I promised. But things need to change, for everyone's safety and well-being. On Wednesday, we had a breakthrough. A local pawn shop owner called in response to the alert I'd put out about Mom's missing jewelry. He had Grandma's diamond necklace, which Jenna had sold him 3 weeks earlier for far less than its value. I immediately went to reclaim it, paying the required amount and securing the precious family heirloom. That evening, I showed it to Mom, who burst into tears at the sight. I thought it was gone forever, she said, running her fingers over the diamonds. Your grandmother wanted you to have this diminish. I was so confused at the barbecue. Jenna had been telling me for weeks that we'd agreed you didn't want it anymore, that you thought it was old-fashioned. I've always treasured it, I said softly. Not for its monetary value, but because it connects us to Grandma. Mom took my hand, a moment of perfect clarity in her eyes. Take it now, she said. It belongs with you. I was wrong to let Jenna convince me otherwise. As I fastened the necklace around my neck, I felt a circle completing. But unlike at the barbecue, where the necklace had been a symbol of rejection and hurt, now it represented healing and the restoration of truth. The next day, the temporary guardianship was approved by the court, giving me legal authority to make decisions about Mom's care and finances while the petition for permanent guardianship proceeded. Caroline helped me set up a special needs trust to protect Mom's remaining assets and ensure she would qualify for additional benefits if needed as her care needs increased. On Friday, Mark reluctantly returned to Seattle with the kids who needed to get back to school. I promised to join them within 2 weeks, once Mom was settled at Meadowbrook and the most urgent matters were resolved. Alone in Taylor's guest room that night, I reflected on the whirlwind of the past 10 days. From the humiliation at the family barbecue to uncovering Jenna's betrayal to securing Mom's future care, it had been an emotional roller coaster. Yet through it all, I'd discovered strengths I didn't know I possessed, and support from unexpected sources. Most importantly, I'd learned that being a good daughter wasn't about proximity or performing certain tasks. It was about seeing the whole person, respecting their dignity, and doing whatever was needed wherever you were to ensure their well-being. In trying to prove herself the real daughter, Jenna had ultimately failed the most basic test of love, putting Mom's needs before her own. As I drifted off to sleep, the weight of the diamond necklace against my collarbone reminded me of Grandma's words years ago. For my practical granddaughter who still appreciates beautiful things. Perhaps being practical wasn't a flaw, but a gift, one that had enabled me to step in when Mom needed me most and find a path forward through the tangle of deception and hurt. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for the first time since this ordeal began, I felt confident in my ability to meet them, one practical, determined step at a time. 1 year later, I stood in Mom's sunny apartment at Meadowbrook, arranging flowers for her 70th birthday celebration. So much had changed since that painful barbecue that had set everything in motion. After securing the temporary guardianship, I had taken a 3-month family leave from my firm to oversee Mom's transition to Meadowbrook and put all the necessary systems in place. Mark and the kids had joined me for part of that time, renting a house near Mom's facility so we could be close during the adjustment period. Mom had adapted to Meadowbrook better than anyone expected. The structured routine, proper medication management, and social activities had stabilized her condition, and while her memory issues persisted, she was happier and more functional than she had been under Jenna's chaotic care. The permanent guardianship had been granted without contest, but I had worked with Caroline to establish a care committee that included Mom's friends, Susan and Elaine, giving them official roles in overseeing her well-being when I couldn't be physically present. They visited weekly, took Mom on outings, and kept me updated through regular video calls. We had sold the family house using the proceeds to establish a more substantial trust for Mom's long-term care. The sale had forced Jenna to finally find her own place, a small apartment near the community college, where she had enrolled in classes to become a medical office assistant. Jenna's journey over the past year had been difficult, but ultimately promising. After initial resistance, she had committed to therapy where she began addressing the deep-seated insecurities and resentments that had driven her behavior. She had secured a part-time job at a local bookstore and was slowly repaying the money she had taken from Mom's accounts. Our relationship remained cautious but civil. I had established clear boundaries and consequences which Jenna had mostly respected. Her visits with Mom were initially supervised, then gradually became more independent as she demonstrated trustworthiness. The healing was far from complete, but small steps in the right direction gave me hope. "Is that my birthday girl?" Mark's voice interrupted my thoughts as he entered the apartment with Connor and Lily in tow. At 9 and 11 now, they had adapted well to the changes in our family dynamics, visiting their grandmother every other month and developing a special relationship with her despite her cognitive challenges. "Grandma's getting ready," I replied, kissing him. "The aide is helping her with her new outfit." "The place looks great," Mark said, surveying the decorations we'd put up. The community room down the hall was set up for a larger gathering later, but we wanted to start with a quiet family moment in Mom's own space. The bedroom door opened, and Mom emerged in a lovely blue dress, her white hair freshly styled. She beamed at the sight of us. "My beautiful family," she said, opening her arms to the children who rushed to hug her. "Happy birthday, Mom," I said, kissing her cheek. "How does 70 feel?" "Like 69, but with more cake," she quipped, a flash of her old wit shining through. We settled in the living area, exchanging stories and catching up. Though Mom sometimes lost the thread of conversation or repeated questions, the quality of our interaction was worlds away from the tension and manipulation that had characterized the previous year. A knock at the door announced Susan and Elaine's arrival with a birthday cake. As we sang, and Mom blew out her candles with some help from Connor, I felt a wave of gratitude for this moment of simple joy. Another knock came just as Mom was opening Susan's gift. "That must be Jenna," I said, moving to open the door. My sister stood there nervously, holding a small, wrapped package. She had grown her hair out and looked healthier than she had in years, the haunted, defensive look in her eyes replaced by something calmer and more grounded. "Come in," I said warmly. "We just started gifts." Mom's face lit up at the sight of her younger daughter. "Jenna, I wasn't sure you'd make it." "I wouldn't miss your birthday, Mom Jenna," said, giving her a gentle hug before greeting everyone else. The initial awkwardness faded as we continued the celebration. When it came time for Jenna to give her gift, she handed the small package to Mom with uncharacteristic humility. Mom unwrapped it to reveal a hand-thrown ceramic jewelry box clearly made by Jenna herself, in the pottery classes she'd been taking. "Open it," Jenna urged softly. Inside lay a simple silver bracelet engraved with the words, "Mom, loved always." "I made the box and saved up for the bracelet," Jenna explained. "No shortcuts, no one else's money, just mine earned honestly." The significance of this wasn't lost on any of the adults in the room. It represented Jenna's ongoing commitment to making amends, to building a life of integrity. Mom's eyes filled with tears as she put on the bracelet. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Thank you." Later, as we all moved to the community room for the larger party with Mom's Meadowbrook friends, Jenna pulled me aside. "I have something for you too," she said, handing me a small envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000 with partial repayment written in the memo line. "It's most of my savings," Jenna explained. "I know it doesn't come close to covering everything I took, but it's a start. I'll keep making payments until it's all paid back." I was touched by the gesture, recognizing the sacrifice it represented. "Thank you, Jenna. This means a lot." I have something else to tell you, she said, a hint of pride in her voice. I got accepted into the full-time medical assistant program. Once I'm certified, I can start a real career in healthcare. That's wonderful, I said sincerely. You always were good at caring for people when your heart was in the right place. A shadow of pain crossed her face at the gentle reminder of her past failures, but she nodded in acknowledgement. I'm learning to do things the right way now, not the easy way. The community room was festive with decorations and filled with Mom's Meadowbrook friends who had come to mean so much to her. The facility director had arranged for a small string duo to play Mom's favorite classical pieces, and a table displayed photos from throughout her life. As I watched Mom move through the room accepting birthday wishes and introducing her grandchildren to everyone, I reflected on how different this gathering was from that fateful barbecue a year ago. Then she had been manipulated and confused, unwittingly participating in my humiliation. Now she was surrounded by genuine care and respect, her dignity preserved despite her cognitive challenges. After the cake was served, Mom suddenly clinked her fork against her water glass, calling for attention. I tensed, slightly unsure what she might say given her sometimes unpredictable memory. I want to thank everyone for coming today, she began clearly. Reaching 70 is quite an accomplishment, especially getting here with my wonderful family intact. She beckoned me to her side. A year ago, I made a terrible mistake. My illness and some bad advice led me to hurt my daughter Damaris deeply. I gave away a family heirloom that was meant for her, and allowed others to disrespect her contributions to our family. My breath caught. I hadn't expected this level of awareness or acknowledgement. Today, I want to correct that mistake publicly. Mom reached for my hand where Grandma's diamond necklace now rested on my wrist, redesigned into a bracelet I could wear daily. This diamond belongs with Damaris, who has always been there for me, even when I couldn't see it clearly. Distance doesn't diminish love. Sometimes the daughter who moves away is showing just as much love as the one who stays, just in different ways. She turned to include Jenna in her gaze. And sometimes the daughter who stays needs to learn that true care comes from the heart, not from proximity or control. Tears filled my eyes at this moment of perfect lucidity from Mom. Though her memory might falter again tomorrow, this truth had penetrated the fog of her illness. Both my daughters are real daughters, Mom continued. They've both made mistakes, as have I. But what makes a family real isn't perfection or proximity. It's the willingness to forgive, to grow, and to keep loving each other through all of life's changes. The room burst into applause as Mom finished her impromptu speech. I hugged her, tightly overwhelmed by the healing her words represented. Across the room, I caught Jenna's eye. She was crying too, but nodding in acceptance of Mom's gentle wisdom. Later that evening, after most guests had departed, our immediate family gathered once more in Mom's apartment. Lily and Connor were playing a card game with their grandmother, who was teaching them canasta with remarkable patience and clarity. Jenna and I stood by the window watching the sunset over the facility's gardens. She's right, you know, Jenna said quietly, about what makes a real family. She usually is. When her mind is clear, I agreed. I was so wrong, Damaris. About everything. I was measuring love and contribution all wrong. We all were in different ways, I acknowledged. I thought money and phone calls were enough. You thought physical presence entitled you to control. Mom thought she had to choose between us. I'm still learning how to love properly, Jenna admitted, without possession or manipulation. That's a lifelong journey for all of us, I said. But at least now we're on the same path instead of working against each other. Over the next hour, we talked more openly than we had in years, beginning to rebuild the sisterhood that had been damaged long before Dad's death or Mom's illness. There were still difficult conversations ahead, boundaries to maintain and trust, to rebuild. But the foundation was strengthening. When it was time to leave, Mom hugged each of us with surprising strength. My real daughters, she said, simply including both Jenna and me in her gaze. Different as night and day, but both exactly as you should be. As our family drove back to the rental house that evening, I reflected on the journey of the past year. From the public humiliation at the barbecue, to uncovering Jenna's betrayal, from taking guardianship of Mom to establishing new family traditions that honored everyone's contributions, it had been a path of both pain and profound growth. I had learned that being a daughter, being family, took many forms. That care could be expressed through financial support from a distance or hands-on help nearby. That love wasn't diminished by geography, but could be corrupted by resentment and control. That standing up for truth, even when painful, ultimately created space for authentic healing. Most importantly, I had learned that family bonds were both more fragile and more resilient than I had ever realized. They could be damaged by manipulation and misunderstanding, but strengthened through honesty, boundaries, and forgiveness. The diamond bracelet on my wrist caught the last rays of sunset as we turned onto the main road. Once a source of pain and division, it now represented the reclaiming of truth and the restoration of rightful connections. Like our family itself, it had been broken apart and remade into something new that honored its origins while adapting to present realities. As Mark reached over to squeeze my hand, I realized that the true inheritance from both my grandmother and my mother wasn't diamonds or property. It was the wisdom to recognize that love manifests in countless ways, that care takes many forms, and that a real family is built not on proximity or performance, but on seeing each other's full humanity, even when clouded by illness or resentment. That was a legacy worth passing on, far more valuable than any necklace could ever be. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself when family members misunderstood your contributions or love? Or perhaps you've experienced being judged unfairly based on distance rather than the quality of your care. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that distance doesn't diminish love, and that sometimes standing up for truth is the most loving thing you can do. Thank you for listening, and may you always know your worth within your family, however near or far you may be.